Welcome back, everyone. Nick Beres here on MorningLine, talking politics with MTSU Professor John Weil. Good to have you on this morning, sir.
Good to be here.
Got folks, if you want to join in the conversation, do it. It's just politics talk. And let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning. What's on your mind?
I was just listening to you.
Yeah, sure.
Professor.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think Trump already knows exactly who he's going to appoint for this Supreme Court position. And as far as his legacy goes, he could care less. He's got such an ego, he thinks he's the greatest, and he could care less what you think. He's going to do what he wants to do, and he could care less what you think about him. As far as North Korea, I think this has been blown up into a whole lot of stuff about nothing, because I think the latest satellite photos over North Korea shows that they're building new buildings right now that's associated with nuclear products. So, I don't think he's accomplished much there. And I don't put much stock in this. There's a whole lot of news making, a whole lot of backslapping, but that's about it. And the other thing I'll say, this is not national politics. This is Tennessee politics without Hitler. We're the lowest wage-paying state in the United States as far as wages go. So I'll say that, and I'll let it go. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Hadn't seen that. Well, let's talk about North Korea. And Joe, thanks. I mean, yeah, the satellite images that are coming showing that, whatever agreements were there don't seem to be honored now. Now, we understand Pompeo, Secretary of State, is going to go there again today to meet and try to get into it. But right now, I don't know, Professor, do you think, it appears to me as though in some ways, North Korea played President Trump. And what I'm saying is, I never had a problem with the president agreeing to meet with him because I always thought communication was there, and I wondered why other leaders hadn't. Now I'm beginning to understand why. And if you could, for the moment, just when there's some, horrible despot like Kim Jong-un, who's awful, all right, kills his people, his country is in bad shape, and he's seen on the world's public stage meeting with the leader of the free world. Does that bring, just the mere fact that there's photos taken that are on the front page of every newspaper in the world of this little slime bag, Kim Jong-un, shaking hands with President Trump, does that bring cachet for him? Was there something to be gained from him?
Sure it does.
Okay, so he gains. We know right then and there he gains. Now, the U.S. gains and the rest of the world gains if whatever agreement they discussed on cutting the nukes works. And it doesn't seem like that's happening. And I think prior leaders recognize we can meet with him, but we have no way to verify. He's playing us, and we're not going to give him the pleasure of meeting with the president.
I think the one thing that's maybe dropped out of the discussion is that when Trump became president, he essentially said, we will not allow North Korea to get intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Okay.
They got them.
Okay.
Despite his threats, whatever. Now we've sort of forgotten that happened on Trump's watch. And in fairness, it may just as well have happened on Obama's or somebody else's watch.
I think it would have happened anyway.
I don't think they did it because Trump was president, but he made a claim that he was going to stop something that was a little bit like Obama's line in the sand in Syria. Don't say something isn't going to happen and then allow it to happen. I think most of us hope, certainly, that something will come of the agreement and Pompeo's meeting and whatever. But so far, the most that seems to have come of it is that one despot and our president have gotten a lot of photo ops.
Yeah, and that's what just makes me sick, is that seeing in Singapore when they had that summit and seeing Kim Jong-un walking with his little entourage, doing sightseeing, smiling, and gathering crowds of people waving and taking pictures, it made me want to puke. This guy's a murderer, okay? He's an awful, awful person. His country is horrible. His people suffer, and he's a problem for the rest of the world, and he gets his little time in the sun because of this summit. And I was willing to trade that if it truly meant that they were going to cut back on their nukes. If they're not, then the U.S. got played.
Well, one of the things that's hard to understand about Trump is, not only is a particular case here, but Trump seems to cozy up to strongmen. Duarte in Philippines, Putin in Russia, others. it's almost like he seems to wish, he could sort of rule by fiat here the way they do there. And but again, one would hope that his primary concern here North Korea remains, despite what Trump said, and as Pompeo just acknowledged a day or two ago, it remains a threat. They apparently have the power to deliver nuclear warheads to the United States should they choose to do so. I think they're more rational than sometimes it appears on the news, but it's an existential threat, and hopefully what Trump has set in motion will do some good, but to date, you certainly can't count on it. Okay,
so we touched on that. Another thing that I just wonder, with the midterms coming up, I'm just curious what your take is and what maybe behind the scenes the strategy is among Republicans or the president with regard to his continued, escalation of the trade war and tariffs. And I think that, and when you hear the president talk about it, he says, yes, in the short term, this may hurt some folks. And he was frustrated by Harley-Davidson's announcement.
Right.
Okay, but in the end, everyone will be better off. But I don't think there's any question, no debate, that while these tariffs, may have an impact overseas, it is going to hurt many economically in this country, at least in the short term. Many, by the way, who voted for the president.
A lot of farmers, whiskey distillers, a lot of.
Yeah, I was hearing that on the NPR this morning.
As you say, the motorcycle sort of, and what's interesting is actually sort of the sophistication with which the Chinese and some of our foreigners seem to have in regard to where to make it hurt in the U.S. to sort of get back at Trump. Trump has really departed fairly significantly from classical Republican theory. Republicans, pretty much since the Civil War on, have always been almost always been the party that has opposed the imposition of tariffs, and the reason they've done it, part of it is just sort of this belief that free markets over time are going to work, and the other is because historically we know that often often you end up in tariff wars, and the standard of living all across from both nations tends to go down.
Right. So how do these things end up resolving themselves? Is it one country has to blink? I guess the president is doing this, saying he sees these unfair trade practices and he wants China, or he wants Canada, or he wants whatever country to all of a sudden adopt fairer trade practices, which if they do that, then we'll back off on our tariffs. But I don't know that China is going to blink. How hard is it's hard for me to tell. How much is our tariffs going to hurt them, and how much will their tariffs hurt us?
I think we'd have a little bit better chance if we didn't take such a scattergun approach. The notion that Canada, with whom, if I recall correctly, we have a trade surplus, is somehow a threat to us because of some kind of tariff they have on dairy products or a very small proportion of their economy, it just really doesn't hold a lot of water with me.
Yeah.
China certainly, I think the biggest problem with China has been a virtual theft of intellectual property, which is a serious concern, not necessarily one particularly well addressed by tariffs.
And when you say that, I've always wondered, when you say theft of intellectual property, what do you mean by that?
Well,
what are
apparently, they love to get in partnerships with American technology, grab the technology, and then dissolve the partnership and run off with it on their own.
And so, so as opposed to, so that would be like stealing an idea from
how to make a better car or a rocket or ship or whatever product might be.
But what are they supposed to do? They can come over here and buy an American-made car, bring it over there, have their scientists take it apart, figure out what we did for fuel emissions or whatever, and build one themselves based on what they saw in us.
They could.
Now, how is that something anyone can stop?
I don't think you can stop that, but certainly, there seems to be pretty good evidence that they've actually, bugged and
they've had spies here getting.
Apparently, when American companies do business in China, they essentially are asked to relinquish you know, any trade secrets that they have in regard to that business. And that's,
I think when it comes to China, I understand why President Trump is frustrated with what they've done. I think it's probably been unfair, you know, over time. But now I just don't know that they're going to back down and blink. I mean, China is a huge economy.
It is.
Far more people than we have in this country. And they're a superpower. And I don't know that we can win that trade war with them.
Well, again, traditional Republican philosophy is free trade works to our benefit, and if countries want to try to get a temporary advantage, the market is eventually going to correct it on our behalf. Don't worry about it. Trump has Trump comes out of business and has a very different attitude, so we'll see. Yeah,
that's the outsider, more of a businessman. And we'll see it, because it hasn't really been done like this. In my lifetime, I'm trying to think, I know there have been tariffs, but a big when was the last time there was a big trade war in this country?
Well, I'd say Smoot-Hawley, but that would really date me. That's World War I.
This is unprecedented, so we'll see. It's just trying something different, but I mean, it could go one of two ways. It could be good, or it could be real bad. We'll take a break. When we come back, Grady and others, stay there. If you want to jump in, your thoughts, 737-7587, just on politics in general. We can talk local as well. We'll be right back with more right after this.
This is a Storm